All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Ben Siegel with Privacy Ref. I want to welcome you to today's special presentation of predicting the cost of a data breach, specifically with some students from St. Joseph's University who are presenting their predictive cost model for a data breach. So first things first, just going to go over a quick few housekeeping items with everyone. Just going over the general things we're going to do. Then I will hand it over to the students who will go over the model itself, and then we'll have some time to take any remaining questions you may have as well. So we do have a questions box in the GoToMeeting interface. If you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to use that. I will try and relay those questions to the students. For some of the questions more about the model, and for privacy-based questions, myself or Bob Siegel are here to answer those questions. If for any reason we don't answer your question or we aren't able to get to your question during the presentation, we will follow up with you to try and get you the answer to that question. And finally, there's a survey that will be presented at the end of this presentation. Please take the time to fill that out. We use these surveys to basically improve our webinars, improve our presentations, and it would definitely be helpful to us so we can continue to give you great content. To introduce Privacy Ref, we are a privacy consultancy. We're focused on assisting our clients through privacy services such as assessments, training, and consulting, mostly focused or emphasizing alignment of privacy practices with the goals of your organization. So now I'd like to introduce the students who are going to be helping us with our presentation today. They are Michael Gannon, who is a senior business intelligence and analytics as well as marketing dual major, also a co-op student working at Tokyo Marine North American Services for the first rotation and SAP for the second. We have Sam Melnick, who is a senior business intelligence and analytics as well as accounting dual major, and she is also interned at PwC or PricewaterhouseCoopers this summer. And Rebecca Rosati, who is a senior business intelligence and analytics as well as finance dual major, and also a co-op student working at Porter & Curtis for the first rotation and Comcast Business for the second rotation. I'd like to welcome all of you to our, to the presentation, to this webinar. And from there, I'm going to hand it over to the three of you guys, so take it from there.
Thanks, Ben. Appreciate the introduction. Thanks, everyone, for taking the time out of the day to join this session. Before we jump into the model and the Analytics Cup, which was the competition, I just want to give a brief background on the university itself. St. Joe's is a private Jesuit university in Philadelphia, about 8,700 total enrollment with about 5,400 undergrad. And the Hall School of Business, where Rebecca, Sam, and I are a part of, has been ranked one of the top 100 in the country over the last couple of years. And specifically the Decision and System Science Department, which this project falls under, has been on the rise really over the past couple of years with popularity with the students enrolling in it, as well as the rankings across the country. You might also have seen St. Joe's last year. They made a pretty deep run into the NCAA tournament. We're not going to really get into this year. It hasn't been the same year for them, but we'll leave it at that. So we can jump right into it now for the Analytics Cup. So the Analytics Cup was a competition, semester-long project in Dr. Ronald Klimberg's Advanced Analytics course, which is an upper-level course within the Decision System Science organization. Just a little bit of background on the project itself. There was 8 teams and 4 different organizations that the students worked with. We'll talk more about Privacy Ref and the model, obviously, in the next couple minutes. But I want to just outline what the other projects were as well. With the Philadelphia Union, the students were trying to predict how to price the games based on the time of day, the opponent, the day of the week. For Flying Fish Brewery, the students were actually trying to predict the inventory for future months based on historic data from the previous months and years. And for the alumni office, the students were actually trying to predict how much money a donor would donate based on when they graduated, their financial situation, and different factors like that. I want to just briefly talk about why we picked to work with Privacy Ref and Ben and Bob with the model. So each company sponsor came into class to discuss their problem and what they were looking for from the students. And we, as a group, were kind of captivated by how important data breaches are and how they can impact companies or organizations in a very severe and costly way. So we thought that this project specifically, for us, it would not only be the one that we could learn the most with, but also the one where we may actually be able to provide insight to help companies make better decisions moving forward. So that's kind of why we went with the Privacy Ref and working with Ben and Bob. And with that, I'll start going into a little bit of background on data breaches. Ben, if you could, thanks. So just a quick background of data breach. So data breach is any event where secure or confidential information has been stolen or viewed by someone who does not have the correct authorizations. If you look at this chart here, it just shows that over the last 10 years, the number of data breaches has been increasing, which is definitely a cause for concern for a lot of companies out there. Moving on to the next. So why do data breaches matter? I mean, the specific reason, the most important reason is the cost. And the costs over the last couple of years per record and per breach itself have been pretty steadily increasing, especially in the United States, as you can see. This information comes from the annual report done by the Parliament Institute around the cost of a data breach, and as you can see, it isn't going down. It's increasing at a pretty high rate. So that's why we wanted to try to provide something that could help companies moving forward with dealing with those costs. At this time, I'm going to hand it over to Sam to talk a little bit about how we got started with the research for this project.
All right, thanks, Mike. So going into this project and building this model, we actually had pretty much no knowledge as a team about the privacy industry and data breaches in general. So we had to conduct a significant amount of research to build a model that would accurately represent real costs that companies would face in the case of a data breach. So we had to consult we consulted several major reports that had been published by institutions in the privacy industry. The first being a report from Verizon. We also looked at reports from the Ponemon Institute as well as Experian Information Solutions to gain a better grasp about what those costs looked like for companies. In addition, we also were in contact with professionals who have had experience working in the privacy industry. These professionals were able to give us more insight into certain costs that are more common in specific industries, as well as giving us an overall picture of costs that companies as a whole can expect to encounter if they are faced with a data breach. The companies that we spoke to were Privacy Ref, was our first contact point, and then we also spoke with professionals in the insurance industry, the retail industry, and the healthcare industry. In doing this research, we were able to break down the major costs of a data breach into 4 cost centers. The first cost center is detection or discovery. So a cost that would fall under this category would be a cost such as labor related to forensics to uncover whether or not a data breach has occurred. The next cost center is escalation. A cost that would be an example of this would be the price paid for a breach processing team. Next, the third cost center is the notification cost center. This would include all costs related to notifying the customers or anyone who would be affected by this data breach. So there would be expenses such as PR and marketing falling under this cost center. Lastly, we have post-data breach costs. These could include costs such as legal fees or fines that would be incurred as a result of the data breach and any violations that would result in a monetary loss for a company. So now I'm going to turn over to Rebecca.
Thanks, Sam. Next, I'll talk about how our model is different than other models that are in the market today. Currently, historical models are available, and this calculates the cost of a data breach which has occurred in the past. However, our model is predictive, and this is useful so that companies are aware of how much they could be spending on a breach in the future. Our model requires a minimum, most likely, and a maximum value in order to work. And next, I'll go into more detail about our model. Our model uses triangular distribution in the back end. This is an Excel function which requires a minimum, a most likely, and a maximum value in order to work. For example, one question on our survey asks for the cost of labor and forensics to diagnose the issue. The user might enter $200,000 as the minimum, $500,000 as the most likely, and $1.5 million as the maximum. The triangular distribution will then generate 1,000 possible values based on this. We take the average, which represents the best estimate for the cost of labor and forensics to diagnose the issue. Then we combine these averages, and this is the total estimated cost of the data breach. Next, I'll take you through a demonstration of our model.
So I'm going to hand over the presentation right now. So let me get that over to Sam so that she can do that. Here you go.
Can you see it?
Actually, can we switch it over to Rebecca's screen? She has the model pulled up. Thank you.
There you go.
Great, thank you. First, you'll see our introductory page, and this shows background about our model, and it describes that it is survey-based. You can click Begin the Survey, and this will show you the main screen. At the very top, it asks you to enter the minimum, most likely, and maximum value, which I mentioned. If you don't know what a cost is, or if it doesn't apply to your company, then you can enter 0, and the model will still function correctly. We have 18 questions. The first question is, how many records do you project will be compromised? This is important so that we can estimate the total cost of the breach and also the cost per record. Next, we ask for the labor and forensics costs to diagnose, and this is necessary to do early on so that you can find out the reason for the breach. Jumping down, you'll see the specialized training, and this is to train employees on how to handle a data breach. Going down to row 11, we ask, what is the cost to notify a single customer? And this includes mailing costs so that we can tell a customer that their information has been compromised. Jumping down to row 15, we ask, what is the cost to forensically protect the system? And this is to ensure that something of this size doesn't happen again. We also ask for the percentage of customers that you expect to lose from this breach, and in our research we found that these numbers are historically very low, so that's why we use low numbers in our example here. We also ask what are additional costs that you will experience, and this is because our model doesn't include all costs, and some companies could have specific costs, so they can enter them here. And then we also ask you to elaborate so we can potentially add these to our model at a later time. On the right-hand side, you will see the estimated total cost of the breach, and this takes all of these numbers into account. You'll also see the estimated cost per record, which just divides the cost by these records here in this row. You'll see the minimum cost of the breach, which is just all of these minimum values. It's not likely to happen, but just so you know the minimum cost of the breach. And we also show the maximum below. Below you'll see a cost breakdown, and this is a visualization so that you can compare the relative size of the cost, and you can pinpoint if any costs are larger than the others. Overall, we feel that this model will be extremely helpful in helping companies predict the cost of a data breach, and they can potentially take measures in order to avoid a breach of this size. Next, I'll pass it off to Ben.
Hey, Rebecca, before you leave, this is Bob. When you pointed to the totals that were there in column G, you referred to them as being essentially, it sounded like you were saying you were summing the information that was in column B for the minimum and column D for the maximum. But my recollection is that that's really based on, the numbers that are there are really based on the simulations that you're doing, correct?
Yes, they are. So you can see if I change a number in the model that the estimated cost will also change. So this is dynamic here.
Great. So if we double the expected number of customers to be lost down on the bottom from 1, 3, and 4% to 2, 6, and 8, another one down.
Oh, sure.
Sorry.
Yep.
Yeah, so you can quickly see the change in that cost breakdown.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah. Were there any things that surprised you guys while you were building this model?
I think this is Mike speaking. I think one major part of building the model that was tough is that we did not have like the monetary information because of the confidential nature, and so we were trying to be able to figure out what the right questions were to ask so that companies, so that those costs are what companies are experiencing. So I think that the most difficult part was just trying to figure out exactly what to ask so that this could actually be a productive model and an actionable model for a company. So I think that was the main problem that we had throughout the process. Obstacle, I would say, actually more than a problem.
Okay, that sounds great. Are there things that you may have thought about adding to the model that maybe time constraints kept you from doing?
In our research, we looked at the IBM article, and it included many potential costs. We saw that there were different costs associated with different industries, so we thought about having one questionnaire for each industry. However, in the interest of time and just consolidation, we had one main survey.
Okay.
So if we were to move forward, then we might include different questions for different industries, but we feel that these questions are pretty inclusive.
But plus you're all now pretty well focused on your last semester and looking for jobs and things too, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you guys were a pleasure to work with. Hey Ben, were there any questions from the audience that you might be appropriate to ask here?
Yeah, actually, I do have a couple questions. So one of them was more about the sort of the process you went through to develop the list of questions you have in the survey right now. How did you decide on those questions over others, or was there a grouping of information that you used to determine those questions?
Yeah, I can take that one. I guess the cost that we chose for this questionnaire just was kind of a result of all the research that we have done, both from talking to professionals in the privacy industry and the industry reports, as I had mentioned earlier. So we were able to take the costs that we saw from that research and kind of organize them into these cost centers. So going through, although in the model it's not specifically stated which costs fall into each cost center, that was kind of our thought process in determining what to include in the survey based upon those cost centers that we divided the cost into throughout our research.
Great. Another question we actually have from our audience is, what kind of costs are included in these specialized training costs? So I guess, how would that break down? Are there particular things that go into that? What are they?
Something that would be included is to train employees. Maybe there's something that happened in the breach and they aren't aware of how to fix it. So they would have to train employees on new processes for how to fix this issue. That was something that came to mind with specialized training.
Okay. Now the other question I have, I know that there's more than one team obviously working on the same, I don't necessarily want to say same problem, but the same concern, same issue. So how does your algorithm differ, or how does it compare with the other algorithm of the other team that worked on this particular issue?
The other team focused on insurance costs in their model, but our model is more inclusive of different questions in those 4 cost centers that Sam mentioned.
Great.
Yeah, maybe I can help out a little bit. This is Bob again. First of all, I want to state that all 8 teams that were involved in the competition, the other 6 working on those other projects that Michael had mentioned early on, really did a phenomenal job. The way the costs that were estimated between the 2 working on the privacy breach were essentially the same, but the questions were very, very different. The other thing which made this model stand out for me, to be quite honest, was the fact that you could do a lot of what-if analysis by changing the numbers, and you can see how things adjust in the graph. So this model was more actionable, if you will, than the other model. Having said that, these 2 teams placed first and second in the competition, and all 6 people, not just the 3 that are here, were phenomenal to work with during this. This is really a stellar group of students that I had the opportunity to work with. I'm really grateful for the opportunity. Any other questions, Ben?
Not right now. We do have some questions, but I think they're going to be answered in the next slide, so we'll hold on to it for just a second.
You guys want to, up at St. Joseph's, you want to add anything?
I think we're good. I appreciate the questions, and yeah, I agree that with the ways that we set the model and with the pie chart as well, that kind of fluctuates as we change the cost, that can be very actionable, where a company could really pinpoint what cost they need to kind of improve on, or just have to be aware of if a situation like this happens, and they need to kind of allocate for that specifically.
Okay, great. Go ahead, Ben.
Okay. All right. I'm going to take it back here. Okay. Everyone should be able to see the presentation again, correct? Okay, great. So obviously, a question people may have is, where can we get a copy of this model to use it ourselves? So we have the more general model that was presented by Mike, Sam, and Rebecca. You can find it on our website at downloads.privacyref.com, which you can also reach by going to the Resources tab in our website, and it's a drag down to go to Presentations and Papers. The model is at the very top of all the things that you can find, and we are asking for donations. This is totally optional, but this goes towards the Decision System Sciences Department at St. Joseph's University, as well as future analytics cups. From this competition, it was definitely very fruitful. We got a lot of great information. All the teams did a fantastic job. So we definitely encourage you to donate so that we can continue to get this kind of great information, these great results. Alongside this, what we'd like to say as well is that if you're interested in a particular model or working on a model or using the model for your own business and require additional assistance, Bob and I are more than available to help, and we'd love to offer our time to potentially help you by either fine-tuning that model and getting it to be more accurate to your particular industry, looking into information for things such as if you're a HIPAA-covered entity and you have additional concerns or costs associated with HIPAA, we can help with that. If you're a financial institution that's covered by other laws such as Graham-Leach-Bliley, we can help you there as well. So if you're interested in that, please feel free to drop an email to info@privacyref.com or call us at 888-470-1528, and we can assist you in the fine-tuning or the sort of changing of variables on that model to make it more relevant to your particular situation. So please feel free again to go back to downloads at privacyref.com for that model if you're interested in downloading it, as well as some of our other presentations as well. With that, if there's any other questions, or if Bob, if there's anything you wanted to add as well, we'd definitely like to answer those questions.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to add is the IPP has been, International Association of Privacy Professionals has been supportive throughout this process. They've been kind enough to publish a couple of articles as we've been going through this exercise. But more importantly, you have the opportunity to meet Michael, Sam, and Rebecca at the IAPP Privacy Summit this April in Washington, D.C. The three of them, along with their professor, Dr. Klimberg, will be presenting the model in a bit more detail at the little big stage that is housed in the exhibition arena, and they'll be spending some time in the Privacy Ref booth as well. So please feel free to stop by and meet them, and you can provide some feedback about how you've used the model. I'm sure they'd be very interested in hearing that. Okay, Ben?
Right, we don't have any additional questions. We do have, there's one question that says, will there be separate models for healthcare, financial, etc.? With those models, if you're interested in using this model to sort of fine-tune it, like I had said, for a particular industry, that would be something to send an email at info@privacyref.com to Bob and myself, and we'd be willing to set up some time to discuss that with you so that we can assist you with those particular questions. With that, I think I'd like to again thank Michael, Sam, and Rebecca for their time today, and also for the fantastic model, all the work they've put into this. It's been absolutely fantastic. And since we have no additional questions, I think, unless Bob has anything else to add, that's it. And we want to thank everyone else for coming and taking the time out of their day to view this presentation.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Bob. And thanks, everybody, for taking the time out of your day for this. Appreciate the time.